Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana Jerusalema ikhaya lami ilondoloze uhambe nami zungangishilana dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana ilondoloze zuhambe nami dawo yami ayikholana buso wami awukholana.
It's now time to ask Colin to introduce some of the projects that IMET is doing in other parts of the world, Uganda, Ghana, and India. So, Colin, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Charles. I will, yes, I start by just reminding you what the Palestinian Ambassador emphasized at the beginning of the evening. As IMET2000, we've decided to focus our efforts on child refugees, victims of war and of pandemics, anywhere on the planet, wherever we think we can make a positive impact. In the past, we've worked in Afghanistan before the big trouble started, Laos, Senegal, and Malawi. Malawi quite recently with a scholarship for training in India for 2 years, as well as those currently in our portfolio, Uganda, Ghana, West Bengal, Peru, and the Tibetan refugee camps in India and Nepal, as well, of course, as the Middle East. I have to emphasize that 85% of our effort and energy and money goes to the Middle East, whether it's Jordan or Syria or Palestine, Gaza, and so on. I'd like to persuade you to support some of these later in the program after you see what is achieved on the ground through our frontline workers. We learn from each experience to produce what we hope in time will be a published model of extreme healthcare. I mentioned it before, a little earlier, that we talk about extreme medicine for those that are climbing mountains and so on, working in the Himalayas, wherever. But I think the world needs now a new model of extreme healthcare to cope with all the horrible things that are going on, whether it's occupation or military conflict or pandemics, or all of them together. For example, the occupation of Tibet since 1950 offers critical mental health in desperately needed midwives. Tibet, I want to show you the Tibet case study. We're training a lady who is a nurse already, but now is training as a midwife. Midwives are desperately needed in both Nepal, when the refugee camps there, and in India in the refugee camps there. But of course, we can't get into Tibet itself. So I just wanted to introduce you to this lady as one example of a scholarship. We're paying for her to train in Mysore University in the south of India for 2 years. And then she'll be one of the very few trained midwives to come out of Tibet. She comes from a desperately poor family. Her father's a farmer and he can't work now and is many of the family have got COVID, and that's sweeping right through the whole region. So it's very bad news. It's now my pleasure to introduce a short film about Hirona Hospital in Kasoga town in Uganda, made by two remarkable men working under extreme economic deprivation, Henry Garvin Mukulazi and our IMET2000 official representative in Africa, Richard Field. These are two extraordinary people, and we're so thankful for the equipment collected and donated to by one of our active trustees and nurse matron, Kathy Green. They're all remarkable people, and what's been achieved in just 4 years since the foundations were laid are due partly to a philanthropist who wants to remain anonymous, but has made an enormous contribution to building this hospital. And it's probably more than the whole of IMET's other contributions. So I'd like to show this video now, just made by Richard and Garvin, and show you what we're doing in this one hospital, which again is a training base, a place for midwives to train, a place for maternal health to be developed, and a place for medical students in Kampala, the 4 universities now with medical schools, all sending the students to us just 4 years after we actually laid the foundations of the hospital. So I think it's a remarkable story. So over to you, the video, please.
In February 2017, whilst in Uganda, I was taking this route from Kotosi on Lake Victoria to Chisoga village. On this particular journey, I'd noticed a small medical clinic with a scan advertised. I'd never seen a scan in the village before. I went inside and I met Henry Garvin and his wife Rose.
Dr. Mukalazi, Henry Garvin. I grew up in Chisoga village. I studied my primary school in Chisoga village, did my secondary and all my education in this area. From the time I was young, we had no health facility at all. We only went to the priests who were missionaries to give us medicine. And because of the fact that by then we had lots of malaria cases, I often fell sick, and I grew up having that in heart that at one time maybe we would have a facility in our village. And for that reason, I worked hard day and night to make sure that we start with something small, and we started off Hirona Medical Center, which was in 2 rented rooms in Chisoga village. So in 2017 we started off with the foundation, and IMET came on board. This fully funded the roofing, plastering, painting and electrical installation of phase 1 of the hospital. And this had a small pharmacy, a dispensing area, a laboratory, and a few admission beds that were made with local. So we were blessed to have Professor Colin Green in 2018, who came to launch phase 1 of the hospital. And after him seeing what we had on ground, he pledged to find funds to set up a very good eye clinic and work on equipping all the hospital.
Next, Colin Green contacted Patrick Paul of the Paul Foundation. The Paul Foundation quickly came on board, and incredibly they funded the next phase, the basement project, which gave the hospital a permanent space for the eye clinic, an x-ray room, a theatre and a ward. And on completion of the basement, amazingly the Paul Foundation funded the 3rd phase, the ground floor. This gave the hospital 3 wards, a maternity unit with labour suite, 2 operating theatres, private rooms, and all the time this was going on, IMET2000 were helping equip the hospital with an x-ray machine, hospital beds, anaesthetic machine, scan, operating microscope, to name just a few, and very importantly, an ambulance. This is how Hirona Hospital looks today.
As a hospital, we lack oxygen. We've been using oxygen cylinders, which we fill, but it's a long distance from the hospital to where the nearest plant is. If we had oxygen as a facility, we would be able to save a number of lives, not only in the COVID situation, but often we need the oxygen to almost all mothers that we do take to theatre.
My experience for the years I've been working, have been having a problem of oxygen, but it has intensified, especially during this coronavirus.
Our eye clinic last year registered over 300 patients with cataracts. These are elderly men and women who can't afford surgeries in hospitals in town. So from last year, when we did the last free cataract surgery with support from IMET, we've not done any other camp, and these patients have been always calling us. So we need support to help these people restore their vision.
In 2020, Harona Hospital did 20 free cataract operations funded by IMET2000. Dr. Susan Chichira led the team. As Garvin said, Harona Hospital has come a long way in a very short time. And as Professor Colin Green stated in his speech at the opening of the hospital, we have a wonderful building, but it is nothing without the people in it. We need help to continually train and improve the skills at Harona Hospital, like the Julie Felix Memorial Scholarship for Maternity, or training young students from Kampala's universities. This really is the lifeblood of the hospital. As well as needing oxygen, Harona Hospital needs to improve its water and electricity supply. At present, electricity is expensive and unstable, with regular blackouts during operations. This can be extremely dangerous. Even with the backup petrol generator also supplied by IMET2000. Being on the equator means sunlight is plentiful. Solar power would give a cheap, reliable and clean power to the hospital. Thanks to the Paul Foundation, we have a hospital bed with patient monitor and oxygen. This is dedicated to patients in a critical condition. With the help of IMET2000, we have a UCL Ventura CPAP respirator, but we need a proper intensive care unit. Currently, critically ill patients are referred to expensive Kampala hospitals. This often means a loss of patients for a fear of high costs. We also need an ICU for the wonderful collaboration with CHIRA, who send organised groups of surgeons from Switzerland, Germany and Austria to perform free, difficult operations for people in desperate situations. With so much progress and need for help, it is difficult to mention all that is happening in Harona Hospital, like the HIV clinic, the dentistry, and our laboratory, which desperately needs a biochemistry department. The list goes on. It is important, though, for the amazing work to continue that has begun here, and to continue to grow and help as many people as possible who would otherwise not get the quality and affordable healthcare. It's been made possible by Harona Hospital, the Paul Foundation and IMET2000.
Thank you very much, Richard and Garvin. Now you see what I mean about what happens in a third world country with terrible poverty rampant right through the country, yet still managing to try and reach international standards with very little help really in terms of Western currency. We're talking about building that hospital from scratch to what it is today for about £460,000, and including staff running and everything. Can you imagine what that money would pay for in this country? It's quite remarkable. And I wanted to give you the good news that today another charity in Switzerland called Aquapura has agreed to provide the water we want, which is going to be a much deeper well, a much better pump, water tanks, and separation of drinking water from what water would go down the sink in toilets and so on. So I'm delighted about that. This is going to be worth about £40,000 to us. So this is yet another big grant that we've just got in the literally in the last 6 weeks. So I'm delighted about that. I now just want to introduce Sarah Gardner on a video, a clip, because she was pretty certain she wouldn't be able to be here tonight. And I've just learned that she's very ill, so she won't be here tonight. So I'm just going to show this clip about the work that we're supporting in Ghana, right at the top of Ghana, a very poor area. Food is, I mean, total insecurity, and with climate change, it's getting worse. The desert is spreading right across Africa, and it's making growing crops much more difficult to feed themselves. So I'd just like to introduce this video clip of what's going on in Ghana. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I am Sarah Gardner, and I am proud to be Chief Executive of Action Through Enterprise, or AID, a small charity doing brilliant work in Laura in Upper West Ghana. We empower communities and individuals to better their own lives. We give the support that's needed for bright, motivated people to meet their potential, to be able to care for themselves and for their children. Laura is geographically isolated, beautiful and rich in culture. We work within existing systems through incredibly talented and committed local staff to make sustainable, long-term change. I am so grateful for the generous, long-term support of IMET2000, who have been supporting our work for many years, specifically with grants to develop our SNAP programme, our Special Needs Awareness programme, fighting for the rights of disabled children and their families. In a place where disability is a curse and often results in abuse, neglect and abandonment, disabled children are locked away and hidden from society. To change this, we provide a structure of care focused on play, relationship building and practical support. Our SNAP work is led by the amazing Camille Isahaku, a Laura man who's dedicated himself to advocating for these children and leading our SNAP team to transform the lives of children with a wide range of disabilities. Camille's salary is fully funded by IMET2000. Thank you so much for this incredible support.
My name is Camille Isahaku, and I'm the SNAP lead for Action Through Enterprise here in Laura, Upper West region. SNAP is a special program for Action Through Enterprise, which works to improve the lives of families of children living with various forms of disabilities. Through this, we are able to support some of these families with basic healthcare needs, educational materials, among others. This year, we have been able to support some of these families with agro materials like fertilizer. We have been able to support some of them with wheelchairs, and currently working on educational materials for a number of the children being in the formal educational sector.
Our SNAP team provides friendship in the darkest of times. We are a lifeline for families who suffer from extreme discrimination and often abuse. Our 3 large monthly support groups enable parental support, education and a chance to share. It brings together mothers who often don't realise there are other people out there with similar issues. Our play scheme travels to rural children twice each week. Children can play, make friends, learn and feel valued. Seeing these children throw a ball, complete a puzzle, draw a picture or enjoy a song, it fills me with joy. We advocate for our children to attend school, negotiating and funding for them to access education in the most appropriate setting. Some can go to mainstream school with the right support, others can be supported to go to specialist schools. We ensure that our families can access healthcare systems. We fund government health insurance for all of our children and their main carers, so they can go to hospital when they're sick and access vaccinations and other preventable healthcare. We also enable access to specialist healthcare. Just last week, Camille distributed 10 wheelchairs. These chairs transform lives. Children can now leave their homes and sit at the height of their peers. It gets them up off the ground. It includes them. We fund mothers of disabled children through our small business development programme, enabling them to run thriving businesses, to make profit and care for their families themselves.
My role is important here because through this I am able to speak as their mouthpiece, linking them to the interagency units, talking about human rights services, social welfare division, National Commission for Civic Education, Ghana Healthcare Services, among others.
We work with 170 families. We make a difference, but there is so much more to do. In 2022, we want to set up 2 more large support groups. We want to expand our play scheme. There are so many more children out there that need our help. I'm excited about the future, about the difference that AID and our SNAP programme can make. We are a small charity and we are doing huge work. Thank you so much to IMET2000 for your generous support, and particularly to the inspirational, kind, committed Colin Green, to whom I will always be grateful. Thank you.
Through this, I know we can do it together. And with your general support, IMET, I know we can all put smiles on the faces of these people that we support. Thank you very much.
Oh, so lovely. That's wonderful to see that video. And thank you, Sarah, for putting that video together. I visited Ghana in 2019 for a work project, so it's so nice to see some of those images there and to hear those stories. We now have a special recorded message from another IMET patron, Channel 4 news presenter, Jon Snow. Jon is scheduled to be at the Labour Party conference this evening. I think he's on duty for Channel 4, so he's unable to join us. So he's recorded this message. Jon needs no introduction. He appears on our screens most days as an anchor for Channel 4 News. He's been a patron for IMET for many, many years, and he normally attends all of the IMET events that he can when he's available. He has done a brief recording for us from the Channel 4 News studio. It's really lovely. You'll see it in just a moment. And he's going to tell us about his interests and love for Uganda, which he's had ever since he volunteered there in, I think, 1967. So here we go, a message from Jon telling us a little bit about IMET's project in Uganda and about his time there as well.
O Uganda, may God uphold thee, we lay our future in thy hands. United we for liberty, together we'll always stand. The Ugandan national anthem. And it is precisely that spirit that IMET2000 captured in fully supporting Harona Hospital since May 2017. That's when the foundation stone was laid. Today, it is admitting 7,000 people per month as day patients. The hospital serves a population of 600,000 in Mukono district in Uganda. Inevitably, the COVID-19 surge in Uganda has considerably impacted on the hospital's work. The hospital has been forced to set up a ward of 12 beds for severely infected patients with life-saving oxygen and medicines, which IMET2000 is delivering at great cost. Because of the lockdowns, fewer patients have been coming through the door, and the reduction of income, which normally pays for the 50 staff, has provided enormous difficulties. Because oxygen cylinders can no longer be filled in Uganda, IMET2000 is sending an oxygen generator so that the hospital has its own supply. We are buying a Toyota Land Cruiser fully equipped as an ambulance, not only for emergency transport, but to provide backup for the mobile clinics. This is a very special thing for me because I was lucky enough to be sent to Uganda at the age of 18 in 1966 as a volunteer teacher with VSO. I lived for a whole year on the banks of the Nile, teaching in a secondary school some 60 miles upstream from Lake Victoria. The experience has informed my life ever since. That's why I support IMET2000's work with cancer treatment in Uganda and above all for the hospital in Mukono district in Uganda. It's a beautiful country. They are wonderful people. They've suffered so much, but their resilience ensures that great work is being done, and IMET2000 is a valiant and successful supporter in the development of that country. That's why I sang the Ugandan national anthem before telling you of IMET2000's work.
Thank you, Jon, and so lovely that he was able to record that from the studio for us. I'm now going to hand over to Malik and Colin, who together are going to describe 5 projects which we hope will spark your interest and generosity this evening. These are projects that we're specifically fundraising for at the moment, and which really need your support if you're able to provide it. These are all particularly urgent within the context of the current pandemic as well. So I'll hand over to both Colin and Malik.
Thanks, Charles. Thank you very much. Well, this is, I hope everyone enjoyed the videos, the comedians and everything we've delivered so far. But this bit now, I'm coming to the bit which I don't enjoy myself, which is the bit where we will both, Colin and I, have to ask for money. But as you can tell, we can't do anything of what we've pledged to the people in Palestine, in Yemen, in Syria, and in Africa. We can't deliver anything without your generosity. So the good news that we came to this meeting this evening knowing that we have raised a lot of the money we were expecting, which is very good news. And this is again down to you guys, our friends, our supporters. So we were looking to get £60,000 to do whatever we wanted to do. And like I said, we've got most of that. We are left with a little bit more, which we are asking your generosity for. So I'm going to talk about 3 projects in Palestine, which I am seeking your generosity for this evening. Then probably I'll hand over to Colin to talk about a couple of other projects in the Middle East, in Syria and Yemen, and then another 2 projects, one in Ghana and one in Uganda. Speaking of the projects in Palestine, we are looking for funding for 3 projects, 2 in West Bank and 1 in Gaza. The 2 in West Bank is to do with really capacity building. So as you've seen from the videos, we've been working around the clock. When everybody decided to sit at home, we stayed on the front line, training doctors and nurses on how to handle cases during the pandemic. Would like to continue. And I don't know whether you know or you don't, but we are going through the 4th peak. And it's horrible that out there. And if you look at the factors in terms of number of populations, very high number of deaths and very high numbers of admissions to hospitals and intensive care. So we need to continue this. And for this, we're looking for £6,000. So it's on the whole grand scale of things. It's not big money, but I can tell you with that money, we can do a training for a whole year. So that's project 1. The second project for Palestine is, you've seen some videos from our trauma center. And as you can see, with your support over the last few years, this center is now up and running and self-funding. And now we are at a stage where we would like to expand it so that we could do training for basic life support and training. And again, we're asking probably another £8,000 there to buy essential equipment and mannequins to enable us to deliver this training. The third and last project, and then I'll hand over to Colin, is to do with these lovely kids. You've seen what we've been doing with the 3 charities, and there's the cat project going on in Gaza as well, with some of our people who we've invested in coming back home now, 2 psychiatrists. We would like to continue supporting them, and we'd like to, with your help, we can deliver and we can make our pledge to these kids and their families come true. I'm going to shut up here and hand over to Colin, and I really hope you guys can support us on these 3 essential projects. Thank you. Over to you, Colin.
Thank you, Malik. As I said before, at least 85% of our effort and money goes into the Middle East, and most of that goes to Gaza and the West Bank of Palestine. But I hope some of you will support some of our projects outside Palestine. I've sometimes wondered if we could do anything in the Yemen, for example, as seen as perhaps the worst suffering on the planet at the moment. Fortunately, my good friend Stella Charman, who runs a charity called Action for Child Trauma, has set up a training program for psychologists, social workers and school teachers, and invited us to participate. We've already talked a bit about the success of this program and the difficulties it faces, but a mere £5,000 tonight would make it possible. I would also like to commend to you the great work that Sarah Gardner, who alas is ill tonight and can't join us, but she's doing extraordinary work in the very poorest region of Ghana, and showed her film describing just one aspect of the SNAP program. I just wanted to emphasize the SNAP program is for disabled children and their mothers, and the mothers come in once every fortnight or so, 60 of them from villages around the center, and they join together, and it's the first time that they know other people who've got the same problems with their own children. It's such a stigma and a taboo subject that people hide away from mental health issues or disablement and so on, and it's shocking. It's something we're trying to address, and actually it's working. We've now extended our program to 3 different regions, not just villages, and taken this SNAP program out to that. So it's something I'm hoping will expand and expand through the top of upper reaches of Ghana in the very poor areas. So that's, we need really support, 6,000 to support Camille, the Ugandan, who you could probably not understand very well. We should have had captions there, I know, and the SNAP project, which I've just described, for a whole year, just £6,000. Finally, just want to expand a little about her own hospital in Uganda. Due to the 2 wonderful benefactors that I named earlier, we are now the proud owners of a brand new Toyota Land Cruiser ambulance. 48,000 was donated, and 50,000 was donated, and we needed 48,000 for the Land Cruiser itself. And that's not just for picking people up off the road after road accidents, although they're plentiful, I tell you, unfortunately. This town is on the north-south route from the northern parts of Africa and Tunisia and Algeria and places like that, right down to South Africa. So it's a terrible place for carrying disease and so on, and terrible accidents. So it's very important for that and for the outreach clinics. And I'm terribly keen on the outreach clinics. This is something that MAP do in the West Bank very successfully. We've done the same in other countries. And I like the system. You can do an awful lot in very poor areas and very poor villages where there's no healthcare whatsoever, and there's no transport to get out of the village. So people just die, or women just die because a baby's stuck inside them and rots. And that's a terrible thing to have to say, but it's shocking. And I think it's something we should address. And the purpose-built oxygenator was valued at 110,000 initially. That includes installment. That's what it will cost to pay for all shipping and installation, and that means piping into the COVID ward with 12 COVID beds, into the surgical theatres, of which there are 3. So it requires a lot of work once it gets there in a container. It's stuck on the outside of the hospital, and it's piped, the oxygen is piped in. If you don't understand what oxygen generators are, you suck in compressed air or air, and you separate the oxygen into 93% or 94% medical grade oxygen, and you chuck out the rest, the pollutants, the nitrogen and so on, out of normal air. So it's a way of being self-supporting and self-sufficient in the hospital for all your oxygen supplies. And that's terribly important because there's no oxygen available. It's a terrible problem in India. It's a terrible problem worldwide, but it's particularly bad in Uganda because there is no oxygen. You take your cylinder to the central place to get it filled. It takes you hours to get there. You arrive there and they say, go away, you might get some tomorrow. Back you go. It's a terrible situation and extremely expensive. I mean, the cost has gone up 5-fold in the last few weeks just because of COVID. So to pay for all shipping and installation, all of that piping, we need at least 15,000, and we can raise some this evening. So I want to thank you. We're not going to have an auction this evening, but we have in the past had silent auctions. But I have got just one book, an antiquarian book, which was printed probably in 1895, and it's been donated to us. It's in absolute mint condition. It's called Palestine, Palestine Past and Present by Laura Valentine. It's been valued in mint condition at £280, and it has a reserve of £200. It's open to offers this evening in writing. I personally would love to have it myself, but if we get a good bid, I have to let it go. But it'll be on offer this evening in writing after completion of the program. It's a special antique book, and before I hand over to Charles, I want to say a massive thanks to everyone for being with us, and the guest speakers and the entertainers who will accept no fee and help us just for the sheer hell of it. Finally, I want to tell you that I think the Board of Trustees that we have got as an institution, is the best Board of Trustees I've ever worked with, and I've worked with many. They're a tremendous group of people, and they don't just sit on their bottom twice a year and listen to us pontificate. They actually go out to Ghana, they go to Tibet, Nepal, India, and they go to Palestine on a regular basis when COVID allows, of course, and actually work for us. They don't just talk about it. So they're very active. And we've also got a very supportive council of patrons, some of whom are here tonight, and are very supportive and very active in many cases. So my wife, oh yes, I did. My wife is handing me a bit of paper to remind myself. The other thing, I just want to end on this. Because of this oxygen shortage, one of our trustees, Professor Rebecca Shipley, is a mechanical engineer, mathematician. She's head of health engineering in University College London, my old place, and she's designed these constant pressure airway CPAPs respirators, which are much better than ventilators in the initial stages of going into intensive care. And UCL have not only donated them to many countries, but they've given free all of the blueprint for actually designing them. No money, no return. It's like AstraZeneca letting their vaccine go so cheap compared with Moderna and Pfizer. It's a British, I think, one of the best British things that we can do is to provide soft power and do something for the third world, the developing countries, the poor and needy, anywhere on the planet. I really feel strongly that we should be doing this rather than building stupid aircraft carriers which are floating targets, and not doing anything for our reputation worldwide at all. So I want to end on that note. Thank Becky Shipley for her work, and of course she knows that we've helped her get these breathing circuits and so on into Peru, as well as what we do in the Middle East and Africa. But that's our first move really into South America, and we'll expand there if we have to. So I'd like to thank you all again and shut up. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you so much. I think we all have a lot of warmth and love for you. So thank you for your lovely messages, and thanks to both you and Malik for giving us that call to arms of the projects which need support. So we're coming to the end of the event, and before you hear a final farewell from me, I'm going to ask the chair of the IMET Board of Trustees, Nick Maynard, to say a few final words. So Nick, let me unmute you and over to you.
Thank you, Charles. I have a few thanks to make. I'd like to pay tribute particularly to our Palestinian team in Ramallah. As you can imagine, during the COVID pandemic, the demands on their services have tripled over the last year, and they've worked tirelessly day and night, often for very little reward, and have been really fantastic in the work they've done. So I'd love to pay tribute to them. We do rely, of course, on donations and grants, and we've been very lucky over the last 3 months to attract some massive grants for very specific projects in Uganda from 2 wonderfully generous philanthropists, Robin McGeeky, who's chair of Peak Scientific Limited, and Dr. Nick Koticha, who's the chief executive of Morningside Pharmaceuticals and chair of the Randall Charitable Foundation. Peak Scientific and Morningside Pharmaceuticals, together with BB Energy, have sponsored tonight, and we are hugely grateful for their support. A few individuals have been fairly heroic in some of the things they have done or are doing. I'd like to thank Amanda Toombs, who's running 3 full marathons within 5 weeks in Brighton, Berlin and Paris, entirely to raise funds for IMET. Tim Potier, who is running the Manchester Marathon, and Ivor Dembina, who's running 9 comedy shows in aid of our joint projects with MAP. I'd like to thank Charles, who has run the evening as well as ever, has mostly kept everyone to time. Of course, IMET wouldn't exist without the people who do all the work. And I'd like to pay tribute to Malik, our Chief Executive Officer, who's also a full-time neurosurgeon, and quite how he does all of this is beyond me. His son, Jojo, who's been the IT wizard tonight. And indeed, I know most of Malik's family who've done a lot of work behind the scenes this evening. You all know Harriet, of course, our Director of Corporate Developments and Events, and she's worked tirelessly to make this evening a success. And I guess the last word, but not the least word, goes in tribute to the utterly heroic Colin Green, our founder, Director of Overseas Development and Treasurer, and I think easily to say an inspiration to all of us and what he does for IMET. And Colin's name is synonymous with IMET, and I think we all recognise what an enormous amount he does. So Colin, thank you from all of us for everything you do for this wonderful, wonderful charity. And I'd like everyone to clap out loud. And just as a final word, the best way you can show your gratitude to everything that Colin does is to get on Just Giving and donate money to this wonderful, wonderful charity. Thank you, Charles.
Wonderful. Thanks, Nick. Thank you, everyone, for a wonderful evening. We're incredibly grateful to all of you for being here with us and for the donations that you've been giving, that you've given before the event, during the event, and that we hope you'll continue to give if you can do so. Charities left, right and centre at the moment are asking for fundraising and donations, and we're really grateful that you've chosen IMET and to be part of this community. We're going to leave you with a final piece of music. This is the famous Click song performed by Miriam Makabe. So I'll leave that with you, and thank you once again. Good night, everyone.
Tane